Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Gold Dude, and today I wanted to look at some of the spoilers we've gotten so far in this past week from the Bloomburrow set that is coming to us next month, pretty much. And man, do preview seasons and releases are just starting to all run together at this point. What with Duskmorn coming out in October? Foundations coming out in November. It's a pretty wild life in Magic right about now. But I wanted to take a look at some of the legendary creatures we've gotten spoiled so far from the Bloomburrow set. Starting out with Zoraline Cosmos Caller for 1 a black and a white. This is a 3/3 legendary creature back cleric. It has flying and vigilance. And we're starting to get a more well-rounded look at, what the Bloomburrow set's going to be about. Of course, it's going to have, all your different animal buddies that are going to be, they're a little bit stronger than what you would think they would be. But they're also going to be doing callbacks to some other cards, but also they're going to be buffing up some tribes. And yes, I still say tribes, not typals, that don't usually see the most love. Because in this set, it's almost all animals. Well, some of them are not even technically animals. They're like elementals or calamities, I feel like they can end up being called. They're titans. We're going with titans. There we go. Even though that's a overused statement about nowadays. But they're going to be showing love to the different little creature tribes that we've gotten. And it's going to help build it up. I feel like this is going to be a good step in the right direction, but definitely going to be a weird one. So the next line after my rant is whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain a life. Hey, vampires and bats go together like peanut butter and jelly, if you ask me. And whenever Zoraline enters or attacks, you may pay a white and a black and 2 life. So you're kind of paying that life back into her in a way. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter. I will say the finality counter stuff is something that I'm not too big on. I like straight resurrection. Just give me the card right back from the graveyard to the battlefield or to my hand. I mean, I feel like this could have been better for bats. I feel like you could have gave them like flash or something. Like, you can put it into your hand and now bats you control have flash. Or, put it into your hand and now that creature has flash. You may cast it anytime during your turn. But, I don't know. That's just because I live in the South and bats just swoop out of nowhere for no reason. But, and also on the... I'm not big on the finality counter stuff. I mean, yeah, it's nice and cool. And it does provide a little bit more of a fair look at Reanimator, but it's not my Reanimator. I'm just going ahead and say that. Moving on, we have Clement the Worrywart, and this is going to sound real bad, but I really feel like I fall into like the frog tribe. I'm a laid back kind of person. I like just hanging out, chilling on a lily pad and hanging out and just sitting in the sun enjoying my day. But all the rest of these tribes, they just ain't vibing with me. The frog tribe is definitely going to be my tribe. But Clement the Worrywart is a green and a blue for a 3/3 frog druid with vigilance. Whenever it, or another creature you control enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. Which, if you're looking to, throw some frogs out there and you want to bounce them back to your hand, that was a good one. You're definitely more than welcome to do that. And then it also gives your frogs mana abilities that you can only spend on creature spells. So, I mean, that ooze, that black-green ooze would do some wonders for this deck if you wanted to find a way to try and splash this in black. Wonder if we have any... I'm not even going to finish that statement. I was going to ask a question. Do we even have any green-black frogs? And then I immediately thought of Gitrog. That's horrible. But anyways, I feel like this is definitely going to help the frog tribe, even though that most of the good frogs are like mutants or something. They're mixed with something else most of the time. But to be able to give your creatures a mana ability, that's pretty cool. I like it. This one's I'm definitely vibing with this one. Eater of all. I'm Yigra, something, Yigra, Eater of all. It kind of reminds me of Seraph from Kaldheim. You know, the set we had like 3 years ago at this point. That's pretty wild. For 3, a black and a green, this is a 6/6 elemental cat. See, look, they're elementals. And they're big creatures. So, you know, rodents, lizards, they're big. Which really makes me wonder why otters aren't the calamities. Because otters are pretty freaking big compared to like a mouse. So, I don't know. But it does have this strange ward sacrifice a food ability, which if you're playing in a commander game could, you know, just become hexproof at any point. And then if you play, you know, anything that, you know, keeps somebody from having more than one type of token, I mean, okay, they got one chance to try and kill it. Until they make another one. Other creatures are that's wild. Okay, so the next ability just turns all of every creature, your creatures, your opponent's creatures, into foods that they can sacrifice to gain 3 life. That's pretty wild. But also, it has an ability that goes along with the food ability. Whenever a food is put into a graveyard, a food from the battlefield, put 2+1/+1 counters on her. I could see this being a black-green Voltron, kind of like, what's his face? Skullbriar. At a little bit higher mana cost, and you don't get to keep your counters. Yeah, this could get out of hand, especially because not only are you're enabling other people to do food shenanigans and sacrifice abilities. If you're playing against an aristocrat deck, could get really bad, unless you yourself have a blood artist. This one, I can see this one doing some work in Commander. I feel like this is unique enough to where it's like, okay, everybody has plenty of food. Are you going to eat it, or are you going to let it go to waste? And also, let's take a second to look at this art in the background. Is that a giant dusted bird? Well, we'll have to keep going, and we'll find out who that bird was. It's kind of funny that it's a cat that took down a bird, what it looks like. But right now, we're going to move on to Mura, Trash Tactician. For 1, a red and a green. This is a 2/4 Raccoon Warrior. Yeah, the raccoons are a little too feisty for me, in my opinion. At the beginning of your first combat main phase, add a red or green for each raccoon you control. Which is wild, because, I mean, Raccoon Tribal, who wouldn't want to play Trash Panda Tribal? That is a really good name for a deck. Let me know if you guys use the Trash Panda Tribal deck name, because that is mwah, chef's kiss right there. Then it has the ability expend 4 and you gain 3 life. Whenever you expend 8, exile the top 2 cards of your library until end of turn. To the end of your next turn, you may play those cards, which is kind of like the Wolf Girl. Oh no, actually, it's kind of like what is his name? He's the black-red commander from the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. I keep forgetting. I cannot remember his name to save my life. He's a tiefling warlock. But he kind of has that ability. But you have to, you actually got to do something for this ability. But it's still pretty cool. I mean, to be able to have pretty much a Gaia's Cradle in your command zone, if you're going to be consistently making tokens, it's pretty wild. And this is the forlorn bird that we seen earlier in the video, just not too long ago. It is Maha. It's Feathers Night. I'm reading that correctly, right? It says Maha. It's Feathers Night. That's a weird name. I wish they would have, named it a little better. But I mean, I'm sorry. I just thought about it, and because somebody plays this, everybody just goes Maha. I'm sorry. I'm really feeling it. That is a great name now that I think about it. It's Feathers Night. Oh, that's. Oh, okay. Let's get serious again. For 3 and 2 black, this is a 6/5 elemental bird with flampable, flying and trample. It is not a specific bird, so it's not an owl. It's just a bird. And it has ward, discard a card. Creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. So name an effect that makes every creature on the battlefield get -1/-1 and throw it in a deck. Yeah, that's your removal, pretty much. And if your opponent's playing Eldrazi, okay, it's a 12/1. Nausea, have fun. Name of man, even the littlest of creatures that when they die could kill anything in that point. I mean, shoot, if you're throwing this in a Judith Carnage Diva deck, whatever her name is, from Murders at Karlov Manor, at that point you're killing everything in it. Everything, just everything in general. I feel like this is going to be the next Tergrid for a minute, because giving all of your opponent's creatures base toughness 1, indestructible doesn't help if you neg them, want them. I can name a huge amount of cards that just send this deck to the moon, and this deck almost builds itself. Just make flying pingers at this point. You could just anything that deals neg counters, that deals -1/-1s. You just board wipes at that point for your opponents. Yeah, I can see this one being a little oppressive. Castrol, the Wind Crested. And let me just say, this is oddly familiar to the latest Zur that we got in the Dominaria of United set. The art looks eerily similar. But for 3 a white and a blue, this is a 4/5 bird scout with flying. Whenever one or more birds you control deal combat damage to a player, choose one. You may put a bird creature card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Once again, those horrid finality counters. Or you can put a +1/+1 in each bird you control, or draw a card. So if you hit 3 different players with your birds, you can pretty much get all 3, or you can choose one 3 different times, which could be pretty bad, especially if you have birds with double strike. They hit once, they get buff, and they hit again, and they get even bigger. Which, if you're doing, a huge game, and nobody realizes that your commander lets you draw 12 cards, that could be pretty wild. A Roaming Throne would just send this over the moon, because that is a triggered ability. That is not an activated ability. So if you get 40 Roaming Thrones on the battlefield, you can do just about everything. Which Roaming Throne is pretty busted by itself without any help. Now we're going to move on to the one, I think, the only weird black frog that we see here recently, with Glarb, Calamity's Augur. And I bet this has got to be the dude behind it all. He's got to be the mastermind behind pulling all the strings, because nobody draws a frog looking like a total asshole, leaning up against this lily pad like that. Because for 1 black, green, and a blue, this is a 2/4 Frog Wizard Noble once again, I'm going to point out that Noble Tribal deck is slowly gaining its advantage. And it has Death Touch. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library. Surveil 2 when you tap him. This really calls for a... What is the name of the big hippo companion? This would just be great if you just play mana value. I think her mana value curve is 3. So, I mean, you can play all your rocks. You can go on ahead and cast your land spells. I mean, your ramp spells. And then you could just start throwing big fatties from the top of your library. Which is still pretty cool. I mean, so far, the frogs that we've been seeing, they're kind of small. So, I feel like it'll gain some traction later. Phineas, the ace archer. I don't know why I just threw those words together. Acer. Ugh. For a green and a white, this is a 2/2 rabbit archer with vigilance and reach. Whenever they attack, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. That's a token or a rabbit. In bonus points if they're a token rabbit. Then, if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater, draw a card. So, find a way to give this some kind of pseudo unblockability and just make your army huge. Giant rabbits for the win. I guess. I mean, that'd be pretty cool. I feel like this doesn't do the archer class any benefits, though. Like, I feel like this should have been like a, I don't know, a nutrition list or something. Because archers just, they don't get bigger. Yes, she doesn't get bigger, but it's helping all the rest of your other creatures get bigger. And that, I don't know, that thematically doesn't feel like it fits to me. Moving on to Camilla, the Seed Miser. The Seed Miser. The introduction into the trio of misers. Heat Miser, Cold Miser, Seed Miser. Well, damn. Who'd have seen it coming? I mean, we needed one for spring anyway, so I guess that's where it's going to be at. But for one, a black and a green, this is a 3/3 Squirrel Warlock. And that art is kind of sick. I kind of like that one. She's got a tail bone covering her tail, kind of wrapping around it for protection. She's got all kinds of bones poking out and protecting her. It's pretty neat. It has menace, and other squirrels you control have menace. But the real question is this better than Chatterfang? Probably not. But this is definitely more likely to not get you hated exactly the first turn off the table. So, I can dig it. When you sacrifice one or more foods, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. That's not good, because they put an enabler in the set. You drop this on turn 3, you drop Chatterfang on turn 4, you drop Eater of All on turn 5, and then you just start sacking away, because you sacrifice a food, you get 2 squirrel tokens. And that is not good. That's not good at all. Because now all your tokens... did it say non-tokens? That'd be busted if it did. And then you forage, but nobody cares about foraging. I'll explain that one later. Biza, the Bounding Spring. So it looks like all the big creatures, the legendary, super legendary, calamities as I called them earlier, are going to be like the big, huge elemental creatures. But for 2 and 2 white, this is a 4/5 legendary creature elemental elk. Ugh. When Biza, the Bounding Spring enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more land than you. Okay, so what if it's just 1? You only get 1 treasure token. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. Create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens, and if an opponent controls more creatures than you, draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. This is a white catch-up card if I've ever seen it. Like, this is like uber, like you wanted just card draw, but they wouldn't give you just card draw. They wanted to give you everything. A little bit of mana, a little bit of life. This card is like grandma when you go to visit. Puts a little money in your pocket. It gives you some food, and it helps your friends. You know, if you bring your friends with you, they get a little bit of help too. And then you draw a card. I don't know what drawing a card is supposed to do in real life, what you're supposed to get for that, but this is pretty much like Grandma Tribal right here. This would be a great deck for Grandma Tribal, because it just looks like it's just a carefree elk. It's just a beautiful little creature. And then we have otters, which are the weirdest creature type to just be thrown in a set that are small, but they're considering them to be small, but the calamities, the elementals are bigger somehow. But we have Alana, one of them. Divergent Storm for 3, a blue and a red. This is a 3/5 otter wizard. Like otters needed to be any more dangerous. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's the first instant spell, the first sorcery spell, or the first otter spell other than Elena you've cast this turn, you may have target opponent draw a card. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. That flavor text is actually really cool. I like that one. Why should I chase the storm? Does a cloud chase the rain? Does the sun chase the light? That's where underneath it just said, because I am the storm. And then we're getting some new reimaginings, if you want to call it, of planeswalkers. I think I seen Liliana as a squirrel, which kind of fits because she is a little nuts. Rawl is an otter, which I feel like otters are really ambitious. They're actually kind of like mean, cutthroat if you take away their favorite plushie toy. I don't know. I feel like they've misconstrued otters a little bit because everybody thinks they're so cute, but I kind of don't. I don't like otters. But we have Rawl as an otter. With Rawl the Crackling Wit for 2, a blue and a red. This is a 4/4 Rawl Planeswalker. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Rawl. +1, create a 1 blue red otter creature token with prowess. This is a whole new creature almost. This is almost a whole new planeswalker. I could have swore this was like a regular planeswalker. They just changed him into an otter. But no. Draw 3 cards and then discard 2 cards. And then -10, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with when instant or sorcery spells you cast have a storm. Yeah. In the flavor text it says, I am the storm. Wild. But let me go on ahead and sit straight up, because this is where we get into the hardcore stuff. This is where we look at the mechanics that we're going to be seeing in the next set. And the first one I want to look at is probably the most awesome thing, because I am from the South. This is a possum druid. And just look at that little baby. It's adorable. But this one, I'm going to look at some of the mechanics. And this one has what's called Offspring 2. You can pay an additional 2 mana when you cast a spell. So that would make this a 4-drop creature. 3 and a green. If you do, you create a copy, a 1/1 token copy of this creature, which is really cool. And I hope that it does not lend the ability to other creatures. Like if there's an Offspring Lord that just makes all your creatures have Offspring on the stack. That would be, because I mean, we just got like in the Assassin's Creed set, whenever all of your creatures in your hand. I mean, they've done it a couple times with a bunch of different creatures, but if they start doing it with mechanics, that would be pretty wild, because copy decks could just be really good. I wonder if you could find a way to reduce the additional mana cost on this. Like, how much further could you reduce it to you're just paying 1 for 2 creatures? at that point. But I mean, I really like the idea of it to make, make a little offspring, make a little copy of the guy that's coming in, make a little baby. That's cute. I love the opossum. And I'm from the South, so possums are like right up in there with the cutest things in the world to not have to want to touch, but you can't touch. But nevertheless, I kind of am liking the offspring mechanic. I feel like it might get a little nutty, but only time can tell with that one. And then we're going to get a mechanic called Valiant, which is just a one shot of like heroic. Like it only happens once per turn for the first time each turn. Yeah, I mean, if you can like target on everybody else's turn, that's pretty cool. And because you could do that, because it's spell or ability you control for the first time each turn. So if you could find a way to consistently like turn target, there's artifacts that like untap creatures or tap creatures or something like that. I feel like this could be, really powerful, especially going into like, if this would have been a common, this would have been like a popper, just an amazing popper of red-white heroic deck card. I feel like this would have been great. But because this is like a one-shot heroic, I feel like this is just like as you see it. Ward was dialing back on Hexproof, which was pretty much just a dial back on Shroud. And then we have Valiant, which is a dial back of Heroic, which, can be busted if you're doing it the right way. So, yeah, I feel like Valiant is pretty good. It's a pretty good mechanic. I like it. It does kind of limit you to keep mana up and keep interaction up on your turn to do stuff, to target your own things. I mean, I'm sure there's like a thing that just says pay a red mana, give target creature +1/+0 or something. I mean, dragons do it. I know that for a fact. But on to the next one, we have the gift mechanic, which is pretty much, gift a food, gift a card, gift a fish. I think it's like gift a token or something like that. And the gift mechanic is pretty much as long as you fulfill your promise, and that's saying a lot because that's, you're making a promise in competitive Magic, and that's not gonna, no, I don't, that's a flavor fail if you ask me. But the gift mechanic is, it's a neat effect, especially for Commander. Because you wanna get somebody under your wing. You wanna kind of get chummy with them, and so they don't kill you on their next turn. So I mean, this is a good way to like get some favor without really losing out on anything, because you're still going to get something else in return. Especially like this one, Consumed by Greed, for 1 and 2 black, instant gift a card. You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast a spell. If you do, they draw before its other effects. So you gift a card, you like say, hey, you get to draw a card, and then I get to do the spell. Cool. Target opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. It's not great. If the gift was promised, I feel like that could have been worded differently too. I feel like if it could have said, if the promised gift, I don't know. I feel there's definitely a different way to word that, but it is not that way. Yeah, I'm not seeing the way that works out correctly. You have to definitely take up an extra space of words to correctly, get across the point that if you actually went through with it, then you get the extra effect. Because I mean, you can promise something, but you don't have to fulfill your promise. Like, you have to literally say, gift a card, I promise you this card, and then they have to draw. and then you get the effect. You get the whole rest of the spell. That's just like, that is a separate paragraph. You are now enabling someone to make a move in response to the draw now. Because now you are targeting an opponent. You may promise an opponent. I wonder if that's a target. That would be a good question. Is this a targeted ability? I don't know. We're going to move on because I have spent way too long on this one card. And finally, we have Bramble Guard Veteran, which is not important, but what is important is that Expend 4 ability, which we've seen earlier on another Raccoon Legend, which I feel like Expend might be just specific to raccoons. Because so far, I've only seen like 2 raccoons that had it. But we could get, other creatures that have Expend. But it would be neat to have. But I mean, we've already seen possums, and if you look at some of the other spoilers, there are like rabbits that have offspring and stuff like that. So, the Expend mechanic is just rewarding you for playing other stuff when you've already played other stuff. It's almost like a win more mechanic, kind of, sort of. Because it gives all of your raccoons +1/+1 in vigilance if you have expended 4. You expend 4 as you spend your 4th total mana to cast spells during a turn. I wonder if they could have worded that is if you have cast 4 mana worth of spells during your turn, or during a turn. It's during a turn, so you can expend 4 on anybody's turn. That's pretty wild. Big mana green gonna come through. Big mana green and red gonna come through with some nasty raccoons, I guess. But I've done rambled on enough. I just want to say I really appreciate everybody that has watched, that has liked and commented on the videos, and has shared it with your friends, all that good stuff. We are just slowly but surely climbing up the ladder with subscriptions, and everybody that has subscribed, that's amazing. And if you haven't subscribed and you're watching the video right now, I mean, what are you doing? Don't be an outsider. Join the club. Join the Dead Kids Club. Oh, that's not a way to that. But don't say that. I'm not going to say that. I might have to try and edit that out later. But join the come to the Ghoul Kids table, and see what's coming on over here. But that's going to be it. And I will see you guys next time with more spoilers, and hopefully within the next couple of within the next couple of videos, I'll hopefully have a deck tech coming together. I've got the cards. I've got all kinds of cards actually from the AC set that I want to try and build around and build with. So we're gonna see how that goes, and I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.